Have you ever given your all to someone, only to feel like nothing? You show up, you care, you listen when no one else does. And somehow, despite all that, you're the one left unread, unseen, unchosen. But here's a question no one dares to ask. Why do we keep chasing those who wouldn't even notice if we disappeared? Maybe you've convinced yourself that being present, available, and emotionally generous is what love looks like. Maybe you were raised to believe that if you're good enough, calm enough, selfless enough, then eventually, someone will see your worth, but they don't. And that silence you hear, that's not peace. That's neglect. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." What if this pain is not about them? What if it's about the part of you that still thinks you need to be needed in order to matter? In this video, we're not going to teach you how to argue better, how to get people to value you, or how to play psychological games. We're going to teach you how to withdraw with power. How to stop explaining, stop proving, stop chasing. Because the truth is brutal and beautiful. You don't need to be louder, you need to become a mystery. So if you've ever been exhausted from giving too much, if you've ever felt invisible around those you wanted to impress, if you're ready to reclaim your energy, your dignity, your silence, then stay with me. This is your turning point. Since childhood, you were trained, no, conditioned, to always be available. Smile when you're tired. Say yes when your soul is screaming no. Respond immediately, even when you're falling apart. You learned that love is earned through obedience, that attention is kept through sacrifice. But here's the truth no one told you. Excessive availability is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. You're not being generous. You're being predictable. And everything that becomes predictable then becomes a tool. People learn how to press your buttons, say the right words, shed the right tears, give just enough affection to keep you within reach, but never truly close. Because they don't want you. They want what you provide. Comfort, validation, distraction, presence. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. And your persona is over-functioning. You're trying so hard to be good, to be loved, to be chosen, that you forgot how to simply be. You say, "I'm fine," when you're drowning. You reply to texts in seconds, fearing silence might make you seem distant. You justify your feelings like they're crimes. But each time you perform this emotional obedience, you lose a part of your core. And at the end of the day, what's left? Exhaustion, frustration, emptiness. Let me say this clearly. Being emotionally accessible to everyone is not noble, it's dangerous. Because the more available you are, the less value people give you. Why? Because what is abundant is taken for granted. What is always there is rarely cherished. People don't respect what they didn't earn. They don't value what they didn't chase. And the most tragic part? You're doing all this because you're afraid. Afraid of being left out. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of seeming cold. But tell me, what's colder than giving everything to someone who doesn't care? You keep waiting for someone to finally see you. But how can they see you when you've disappeared behind the mask? This is not a call to become cruel. It's a call to become selective. To realize your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. Ask yourself truly, who deserves your time, your attention, your loyalty? Or better yet, who deserves your absence? There is a quiet kind of power, one the world has forgotten. It's not in shouting, it's not in proving, it's in withdrawing, not as an escape, but as a conscious act of self-respect. You see, most people react, instinctively, desperately, loudly. They think presence means power. They think the more visible they are, the more they matter. But the truth is the opposite. There are people, rare ones, who walk into a room and shift the energy without saying a word. They don't explain. They don't chase. They simply recede. And when they do, everything changes. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are apart from what the world expects. And the first step of individuation? Withdrawing from the performance. You don't need to answer every message. You don't need to fix every problem. You don't need to offer yourself on a silver platter to people who only call when they're empty. Your silence is not emptiness. It is a declaration. It says, I no longer live on the edges of your needs. I've returned to the center of mine. And yes, your withdrawal will disturb others. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you distant. They'll accuse you of being cold, ungrateful, selfish. But that's not about you. That's about them losing control. Because as long as you're always available, they never have to face themselves. You were their emotional escape route. You were their backup plan, their comfort zone, their ego boost. But the moment you step back, they're forced to confront their own emptiness, their own needs, their own silence. And not everyone is ready for that. So they react. They lash out. They beg you to come back, not because they value you, but because they miss the function you served. But you're not a function. You're a person. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop being available, you become magnetic. Because now you're no longer predictable. You're not easily reached. You're not reactive. And in that mystery, people begin to wonder, to reflect, to respect. So ask yourself, what would happen if instead of explaining yourself again, you said nothing? What would shift if instead of pleasing, you disappeared? Not in anger, not in revenge, but in self-possession. Your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's sovereignty, it's you, finally choosing you. Carl Jung didn't see the human mind as just a collection of thoughts and memories. He saw it as an energy system. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction consumes something vital. Psychic energy. You have a limited amount of it each day. And yet, you keep spending it on people who don't value you, on conversations that go nowhere, on arguments that end with you feeling unheard and unseen. Let me ask you something simple but dangerous. Where is your energy going? Not your time, not your schedule. Your energy, your essence, your soul force. Because every time you react out of impulse, when someone insults you, ignores you, tests you, you leak, you lose, you weaken. You think you're defending yourself. You think you're standing up. But more often than not, you're simply bleeding into someone else's drama. And they feed on that. There are people in your life right now who don't need to manipulate you overtly. They just need to know how to trigger you. And you'll do the rest. They say one passive-aggressive sentence, and you write a paragraph explaining yourself. They give you silence, and you send 5 messages trying to reconnect. They ignore you, and you spiral for hours wondering what you did wrong. That's not strength. That's energetic poverty. And the worst part? You believe that if you just do more, prove more, love harder, they'll finally see you, but they won't. Because you're not interacting with their soul. You're trapped in a loop, giving energy to a system that only exists because you keep feeding it. Jung said, that which you resist persists. The more you react, the more entangled you become. The more you justify, the more control they gain. And the more you leak your energy, the less of you remains. Think about it. How many nights have you lost sleep over a message that never came? How many days have you replayed a conversation trying to find the perfect comeback? How many times have you drained yourself over people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared? This is your life force, and it's being wasted. Jung believed that a healthy psyche knows how to contain energy within the system. What does that mean? It means knowing how to say no without guilt. It means refusing to explain yourself to those who already chose not to understand you. It means keeping your peace like it's sacred, because it is. When your energy is well guarded, you walk differently. You speak less, but when you do, your words land like thunder. You don't chase. You draw in. Because presence isn't about how much you do. It's about how much you contain. And when you begin to conserve your energy, when you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop leaking, you become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because you've stopped letting everything own you. You begin to reclaim your center. You stop being bait in other people's emotional games. You start becoming whole. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, ignore you, belittle you, don't respond. Don't explain. Don't give them what they want. Give them silence. Give them nothing. Give yourself everything. Because at the end of the day, your energy is all you have. And if you don't learn to protect it, someone else will use it against you. Most of the people who drain you aren't doing it consciously. They don't think, how can I exploit this person today? Number, they're simply following a script, one you unknowingly helped write. And that script is built on one thing: your predictability. Carl Jung called it projection, a psychological mechanism where people assign their unacknowledged traits onto others. But here's the part most people miss. You don't just receive projections, you agree to them. You become the caretaker, the rescuer, the one who's always there, always calming, always saving, always giving. Not because it's who you are, but because it's who they needed you to be. And you said yes. Why? Because you were afraid. Afraid of being disliked, afraid of rejection, afraid of being seen as difficult, afraid that if you stop performing, you'll stop being loved. So you keep playing the role. And the more you play it, the more people rely on you as that role, not as a human, as a function. That friend who only calls when they're in crisis. That partner who only shows affection when you're fixing their chaos. That colleague who praises you as long as you say yes. These people are not relating to your soul, they're relating to your utility. And here's where it gets dangerous. The moment you stop playing the role, the moment you say no, the moment you respond with silence, the entire illusion begins to collapse. They get angry. They accuse you of changing. They say, "You're not who you used to be." But that's not true. What's happening is you stopped being useful. And for someone who built their comfort on your compliance, well, that's terrifying. Your unavailability is a mirror. And mirrors are painful because now they have to face themselves without you shielding them from their own emptiness. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And when you withdraw, when you stop feeding the role, when you break the pattern, their shadow begins to emerge. That's when the real manipulations begin. They'll guilt you. After everything I've done for you, they'll shame you. You've changed. You're selfish now. They'll play the victim. I guess you never cared. But this is not love. This is emotional theater. And it only works as long as you keep reacting. The manipulator doesn't need to control your life. They just need you to keep responding the same way. But the day you stop explaining, the day you don't reply, the day you withdraw instead of defend, the mask falls. The projection shatters. And the person standing in front of you no longer knows how to play the game. They say, "I don't recognize you anymore." And that's exactly right. Because now, you're no longer a reflection. You're a reality. And reality is not always easy to manipulate. So yes, this transformation will cost you something. You may lose relationships. You may lose approval. You may lose the false comfort of being needed. But in return, you gain your soul back. You reclaim the energy you've been giving away. You start creating connections that are based on truth, not obligation. You become someone who can no longer be seduced by guilt, trapped by fear, or reduced to a role. So ask yourself now, are you ready to be misunderstood in order to be free? Are you ready to endure silence so it can speak for you? Because on the other side of this discomfort, there is something waiting, not control, power. In a world that demands reaction, silence is an act of rebellion. It is not the absence of power, it is the refusal to waste it. When you stop explaining, chasing, defending, proving, you begin to radiate a different kind of presence. One that doesn't beg to be seen. One that doesn't trade worth for attention. One that simply is. Carl Jung taught that true transformation doesn't come from external battles. It comes from inner alchemy, from integrating what was once unconscious, from standing still while everything around you spins. So now I ask you, are you ready to stop chasing those who never truly saw you? Are you ready to walk away, not in bitterness, but in sovereignty? To become someone who no longer leaks energy, but contains power? Because when you embrace silence, you stop being a character in someone else's story. You become the author of your own. Let them say you've changed. Let them call you distant. Let them wonder what happened. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not detached. You're discerning. And for the first time, you're not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing you. So if this message resonated, if something in you feels seen, called, or awakened, leave a comment below. Tell me, When did you finally stop chasing? And what happened when you did? If you're ready for more truths like this, subscribe to the channel. Because here we don't perform to be loved. We peel back the illusions to become whole.